Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. It's been a while since we last had our Instagram live, and it's lovely to be back, alhamdulillah. So we're just going to wait to see. Okay, Ibrahim Rahman has joined, so I hope he has requested to join so I can bring him on the live, inshallah. Brilliant. Here we are. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ustad Saiful, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Jazakallah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Jazakallah khairan. Thank you for having me. I think it's great to be part of one of your live streams with AlAnsaar. It's always a pleasure to work with you. It's been a while since we last worked together, I think.
It has. It's been a while since we last did our AlAnsaar live series as well. The last episode I think we did was on black seed oil and prophetic medicine. So it's been like 3 weeks or so, I think. So alhamdulillah, thank you so much for giving up some of your time and joining us tonight. We've got a very exciting topic ahead of us, and I'm sure there's plenty to talk about, and I do hope we have questions as well. But yeah, I mean, this is what we'll do. We'll start the topic conversation, and of course viewers can send in their questions, and we'll get to the questions towards the end, inshallah. But besides this, how are you? How's everything going? And are you back to work now? Are you actually going into work? We're still working from home. What's happening with you guys? How's your family as well? Yeah, how's your brothers and everyone?
Yeah, no, alhamdulillah, everyone's well, thank you. I've just been working from home like most people have. I've been doing that since the very first lockdown last year.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm in my bedroom now. This is also my office. I've pretty much spent like 2/3 of the day in here. So, you know, obviously you've got sleep and then you're working just across here. So, but, you know, alhamdulillah, you know, I'm also enjoying the job as well. I work as a social media manager at the University of Cambridge. And, you know, that's also been quite interesting. But also on the side of that, in that time, you know, I was volunteering at Cambridge Central Mosque where I was their social media officer. So I was doing that, well, since the mosque opened in April 2019 till about September last year, where I decided to sort of step down really to focus on other projects, which I've also been part of. So some of you might have heard of the Kareem Foundation, which is it's a registered charity which has recently been established in Cambridge. So I'm working alongside my mother, Ibrahim Rahman, and my uncle, Dr. Kareem, and we've basically been working to provide emergency food support for those in our community, particularly in Cambridge. Lots of people have been affected by the pandemic, of course. We've seen some families that have lost income because either some have had COVID or they've lost their jobs and they're relying on the furlough scheme. So we've been working with the Cambridge City Council, with the Cambridge Ethnic Community Forum as well, to identify those who need support, who basically who are vulnerable in our community, and we're trying to get that support to them as quickly as we can. So we've been working with local food stores in Cambridge, and we're trying to provide essentials like halal meat and halal chicken, and also for Bengali families who like fish as well. We're also trying to provide some Bengali fish for them too. So just the sort of meeting their dietary requirements, the things that they would typically have. We're trying to get those things across to them as soon as we can. So, but I just want to also use this opportunity to say Jazakallah khairan to everyone who supported us so far. We will continue to need your support as well as we approach the blessed month of Ramadan. So please do donate generously, and you can find out more information by visiting kareemfoundation.co.uk.
Wow, you've been keeping busy, mashallah. Now that sounds amazing, you know, all the different projects that you've been involved in, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for all of that, and everyone also involved with everything that's been going on as well. I know you mentioned a few projects that you've been working for during the lockdown last year, Cambridge Mosque. Inshallah, we'll get to that, I think, more. I think it's really it'll be fascinating to hear exactly what your role was and what kind of things and how the challenge was. Because Cambridge Central Mosque, of course, it's one of the largest mosques in Europe, and it's a very famous mosque now, perhaps even all around the world. So your duty, your role and responsibility must have been huge. And it'd be nice to hear from you, like how you used social media to promote, events and things happening in the masjid. So inshallah, we'll get to that a bit later on. But in terms of today's topic, what we wanted to really discuss, I guess, was how, not everyone's got social media now. Access to social media is, at the tip of our fingertips, basically. It's in our mobile phones, and we can gain access to it immediately. So I guess the main point of today's discussion is, how can we use it for good? Of course, there's always, we can use things, there's always ways that we can utilize things either in a good way, or sometimes we might fall, victims or fall prey to the whisperings of shaitan and then use it in a bad way. But what we want to really discuss today is, how can we utilize social media for good? What can we do and what can we promote so that we can pile up the reward, and we can, our account book of deeds can just gain increasing reward. So I think that's the main thing that we want to really delve deep into, inshallah.
Inshallah. It's a very good question. How can we use it for good? I guess a good starting point for me would be to kind of talk about, from my experience, how I've been using social media. So I think that's always something that I've been motivated by, to whenever I share things on social media, and that can be with any platform. Obviously, we're on Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Instagram, we've got YouTube, we've got LinkedIn, and now we've got new platforms like, well, we've also got Snapchat, which I'm not very active on at all, but now we've got TikTok as well. So there's so many different platforms out there. I'm losing track of how many there are, but I think something that I've always been motivated by is trying to share information, share things that people can benefit from, things that might be informative, things that might be able to inspire or maybe motivate, try and do something that's positive to raise awareness about certain things. And I think that's, hopefully that's quite consistent with the things that I share, even just on my personal account, or things that I do with other accounts for other organizations, like with Cambridge Central Mosque, where we were sharing things that would benefit the community. And I think that's probably a good starting point to go with, really, where particularly during when the pandemic started, of course, we had to announce that the mosque had closed, and it was important to get that information out there as soon as possible, but also to make sure that it was clear and concise, because with this kind of information, and also with a lot of uncertainty, people not really knowing what's going on, it was really important to make sure that people knew where the source was coming from, where the information was coming from a verified official source. Because it's very easy for certain information like this to, someone could maybe circulate it themselves before it's been announced from the official source. And then that's where rumors and gossip and things like that can start to creep in, and that's where division can start, and we obviously don't want that. So that was something that I was always very focused on. We had a small PR team, a public relations team, and they were all volunteers, all from Cambridge. So we had brother Sharjil Siddiq, who I worked very closely with. We had Uncle Abdul Hadi as well, who's quite known in the community as well. So we all worked quite closely together, just to make sure that whenever we put out a message, it was coming from the official mosque channels. And then from there, we would then ask, please circulate that message, knowing that it's come from the main mosque source. So that was one thing that we were always very focused on.
I'm just sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you there. I think that's a brilliant thing that you just mentioned there. Knowing what the source is. I think a lot of the times we receive news, or even sometimes we fall victim to it, where something might come to us and we might genuinely feel that this is actually genuine news, and without verifying it, we spread it, we share it, and then later on we find out, actually, hold on a minute, it wasn't actually true. And what you just mentioned about making sure for certain that the news is absolutely accurate, and then only then you share it, that's, I think, a very important lesson for us all. Not just to share it without verifying anything, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And another example I can give you as well, I remember this is to do with COVID-19. But I remember when this voice note got circulated, it came from probably from someone, I think eventually I identified that it came from someone from the East Sussex Ambulance Service. But what had happened was that this voice note of this lady probably was working part of the service. She was telling people what she'd heard, probably from like other executives in the organization, saying things like, oh, don't do X, Y, and Z, don't do this and that, you have to do this and that. And that voice note, because it sounded quite believable, people were circulating, and somehow it ended up coming all the way to my dad. And then he showed me this, and then he was saying, well, what's all this about? And I said, okay, let me listen to it. And then I thought, let me go and check where this has come from. So the best thing to do is to actually go and check out the East Sussex Ambulance Service. They've got their own verified social media channels. And then I found, like, they posted a couple of days before that voice clip had reached us, that they were aware that this had been circulating, and they were basically trying to tell everyone this is not true. Do not listen to this information that has been put out into this voice clip. So it's just things like that. It's so easy for things to spread misinformation, and it's just and I'll just want to remind everyone watching, that it's really important that just before you circulate anything, just be careful that you checked where it's come from, making sure that it's come from a verified official source, because if it's wrong and you're spreading that to other people and then they listen to that and they do something that could end up harming them, it can really cause a lot of damage. So it's just really important, and as a reminder to myself as well, just to be very careful what we're sharing before. If you're writing anything, just take a moment, just think about, is this something that I want to share? Because even if you delete it, someone might have seen it and they could end up screenshotting it and sharing it elsewhere, and then you've got no control once that information's gone out. So just be really careful what you do before you share anything.
Yeah, that's absolutely, exactly on point what you just said. And I guess nowadays, so many people are on different groups and they have some various social media platforms. You share it in one group, there could be 200, 100 people in there. They send it to another 100 and that's it. It's lost now. And, you have no control over that message anymore. So sometimes I think it's quite easy, isn't it? Like just to type something, or when you receive something, just share it. But just taking that moment out to really actually see, will this benefit the people, or will this cause harm? And will there be a negative kind of stir around the community? So I think it's really important really to verify and then share it if needed. Or
just want to also add, brother, that also, just in terms of when we write messages, just think about the language, the wording, how you write it, because the tone is also very important, because there are certain things that we might write about which can be quite sensitive. So it's also very important, if you're maybe mentioning someone, maybe someone's passed away in the community, think about how you write that message. And also things like, it might sound like a very silly thing, but even like emojis, you've got to be careful also not to perhaps make it too informal if you're writing a certain message, which could be very serious. And that could be with anything, whether someone's passed away or maybe to do with charity. So it's just very important just to think very carefully about how you're putting that message across, because someone could very easily misinterpret that. Of course, you're not going to please everybody. We know that, but the main intention is, think about what Allah might think of what we're doing. And if you feel that Allah might not be happy with what we're doing, then that will probably be a good sign that no, we shouldn't do that. But obviously there are others who can perhaps advise and give us that guidance as well. We can speak to maybe other, imams in the community who can also help us with making sure that, do you think this is done in the right way? And hopefully they can advise on that, inshallah. So.
Yeah, I guess, what you said regarding a message, it's all the receiver, the recipient will only see the message. They won't see your body language. They won't see your expression. They won't see what kind of emotion you're using to say what you have to say. So yeah, you have to be careful depending on the context. All that will come out from the words that you type and send. So it's really important. Sometimes, I think with friends, family, relatives, we're very relaxed, laid back. We kind of can easily share messages that don't really sound formal. But when you are sending it on a group or even posting it on social media, Instagram, Facebook, it does need to have that kind of professional output to it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So of course, social media is such a beautiful thing. Alhamdulillah. Of course, if you use it the correct way, if you're using it for the correct reasons and purposes, then subhanallah, the amount of reward one can accumulate just because of social media, it can be seen as a blessing, can't it?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting way of putting it. I mean, I certainly think like with social media, it can have such, I mean, it's so powerful what you can do. I mean, we've already discussed just with sharing a message and how far it can go. It literally can go all over the world. That's, you know, how amazing it can be. But at the same time, it can also be very dangerous. You know, we've already mentioned the dangers of if you write a message and perhaps there's you know, inaccuracies, there's things that are incorrect, and if that gets spread to other people and it's wrong, then that can cause a lot of harm. So yeah, these things we've obviously got to be very careful with, but certainly in terms of the good that it can do, if we look at it from the Islamic perspective, you know, I think, like, for example, this live stream, what we're doing with AlAnsaar, you know, that's a great example. You know, we're having a positive, constructive, sensible conversation, mature conversation, and hopefully everyone watching can also benefit from that as well. But also, you know, like how we used it at the mosque, for example, you know, sharing content during Ramadan. You know, we were having, you know, Islamic lectures and talks from the imams there, and also in different languages as well. We didn't just have them in English; we had them in Turkish, we had them in Bengali as well. So it's something to hopefully help with every community. So there's always something for everyone, really, and we want to try and cater for everybody. So that's a good way in how social media is being used to share knowledge, particularly knowledge that benefits us. But also, like we touched upon charity as well. So you know, any kind of charitable acts that are going on, we want to raise awareness of, you know, why this work is being done to help people. That's also very important. But I mean, I don't want to sort of digress too much, of course. So, you know, do stop me if I do. But I think if you talk about like with charity as well, I know that's another thing where you know, a lot of us are doing great work with charity, of course. You know, we're helping people in need, but there can also be that tendency where sometimes people might maybe take a selfie of themselves doing something and feeding someone. And I think sometimes the tone that doesn't always give off the right signal. You know, so we've got to be careful that we don't make ourselves the story. The story should be on the people we're trying to support and help, because and sometimes they may not even want that attention at all. We also have to be mindful of that. So you should always be careful about asking people, hold on, do you actually want to be put on social media? Do you want to be all over the internet? Are you happy with your photo being taken? Are you happy if I mention your name? Because some people may not want that limelight at all, and we have to respect people's privacy. I think that's a very important thing. I should also mention that privacy is a blessing as well. You know, I know that we talk about doing all these great things, you know, being in public, but you know, there are many stories about people who want all this fame and all that, and then they kind of wish that they had time to themselves, and because they're always in the spotlight, they don't have that time to themselves. So that's just something to be very careful with, really.
This reminds me of how some celebrities, they, even today, you know, even what we see nowadays, where celebrities, they just don't want the paparazzi anymore. They don't want any. They just want to lead a life of privacy by themselves, just them and their family. So again, it is, as you mentioned, it's a great blessing that we have, and it's only when we seek more and more and more later to find out that actually, hold on, we should not have taken granted what we had in the beginning. And I think what you mentioned again with charity is so important. Of course, social media, you know, it's probably such a beneficial tool to do fundraising and raise money for various charities, but at the same time, the danger is the intention has to be sincere, because it's so easy to kind of fall on the track or where you kind of lose the whole entire purpose of why you actually started that charity organization in the first place. And I think it's something that we should be mindful of all the time. And one of the ways is perhaps just, you know, renewing our intention all the time. Why are we doing this? Why are we actually doing this? And when someone renews their intention constantly, that it's for Allah, then at least we can keep that intention in line. And if it does start to, you know, go different directions, we can bring it back to the path of sincerity and ikhlas. Ikhlas being sincere and being honest and why exactly you're doing. So it is very, you know, it's not easy, because sometimes, you know, you think, okay, it's only going to be just one picture that I'm going to take. giving this much money to this charity organization, and it's not just going to be one picture, but then that can obviously have an effect going on, moving on.
Because it's when you get the likes and the comments and the shares, so that's when you start to think, oh yeah, this is great, this did really well, so maybe I'll do another post because I know that will do really well. And then that's the thing with social media, you end up falling into this cycle because you've got everyone else's validation that this is a great post, maybe I should do that again because I know people like it. So there's always that danger about fulfilling the needs of the status quo, and you've got to be very careful with that because just because everyone else might like it and think it's great, that doesn't necessarily mean that Allah thinks it's great. So that's something that we've got to remind ourselves, as you said, about being those intentions is really important.
But then again, I guess being sincere and having the correct intention, some organizations, I do truly believe that there are thousands and perhaps hundreds of organizations where they do, yes, they might post videos or pictures or messages that, look, we've raised this much, but with a sincere intention in order to motivate others, encourage other people, and also be transparent about where this money is actually going. So again, we see that even for charity, even giving money to the as sadaqah, as charity, social media can be used in a positive way and in a negative way. So if we're just talking about charity and we see that, look, there's positives and negatives to it, you can use it for something good, to promote, to encourage people to donate, to show that, look, this is what people are doing for the Muslim Ummah, help out, gain the ajr, gain the reward. But at the same time, it could be for fame and for building up likes. So again, it's such a fine balance, and it's so important that in all aspects of life, when we use social media, that yes, what I want to talk about now, there could be a bad side to it, but let me renew my intention and use it, tweak my intention, check my sincerity, how sincerely I want to post this, and let me just make an intention for good. So it's all kind of boils down to your intention, doesn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And it's not just a social media thing. I would say that it can apply to anything. I mean, everyone says that, I know that sometimes some people might say, oh, social media is not a good thing because it can do this and it's not a good thing. But the same could apply to if you write a book. You could use that to write something good. You could also use it to write something bad.
Absolutely.
The same goes with TV. There are good documentaries out there that can educate us, but there are also bad things on TV. The same goes with radio, what you might listen to. So it can apply to absolutely anything. So it's all about how you use the technology, how you use the service that's available to you. If you use it in the right way, then it can only benefit. It can only be for a good thing. So it's all about the intention.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'd like to tell people and encourage people to join, to spread goodness, spread maybe a hadith or a Quran verse every day or every other day, share it with family, friends, because anyone who learns from that, anyone who takes a lesson from it or even reads it, or they might even want to ponder upon that verse that you've just sent, I guess it's whoever reads it, whoever gets that message, whoever reads it and maybe even implements or acts upon that verse or the hadith, that person who sent it will get the reward. And I think especially every Islamic message that we send out, we should have the intention of that people act upon it, people learn from it, and first and foremost, I act upon it. I practice this hadith or the Quran verse, and inshallah, anyone who practices it, you'll be getting reward for it. So again, another way that we can use social media for good.
Definitely, yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. It's just sharing that message, really. Whether it's an ayat or citation with the hadith as well. Anything that can benefit, really, sharing that knowledge. I think that's really important. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Well said.
And you mentioned you did some Islamic events for the Cambridge Masjid, Cambridge Central Mosque, last Ramadan, where you recorded, and I'm sure you did. I think you helped out for the virtual tour as well. I remember. Tell us how that went. For people to have a virtual tour, Cambridge Central Mosque, from the comfort of their own homes. How did that go?
Yeah, that was quite interesting. We had two events, actually. There was one that we did during the Visit My Mosque Day. So that was coordinated by the Muslim Council of Britain. So Cambridge Central Mosque took part in that, as lots of other mosques were also doing so. And there was obviously a lot of interest around our mosque because of, being Europe's first eco mosque and all that. So that was quite fun to be able to host that. And then we had multiple other things going on during this YouTube live stream. So one of them, of course, was having a virtual tour of the mosque. And yeah, that was really cool for people to be, for non-Muslims particularly, to be able to explore that and to be able to see inside the mosque and to learn about some of the, the fundamental aspects of Islam as well. So that was one thing that was very well received. And then we did another one recently, which was part of the Open Cambridge Festival. That's a festival coordinated by the University of Cambridge. So they asked Cambridge Central Mosque to be part of that as well. And because I'm part of university as well, so I had some colleagues there, and they asked if we could do that. So I had that link because of colleagues anyway, but because I was volunteering at the time for the mosque, I was also able to bring that forward. So we coordinated that, and we had two things that were part of that. So one item was about the Islamic Garden. It was a short documentary where we had Emma Clark. She was the designer of the garden. So she came in from London, and she showed some of the key features of the garden, really, why it's designed in that way, which was quite amazing. And then after that, we then had a virtual tour with Imam Sayyad, who basically showed us some of the key aspects of the mosque as well. And I think that was the most popular event out of all the Open Cambridge Festival events. The mosque was the one that had the most bookings, the most tickets. So that was quite amazing, really. So it just showed just how much interest there was in the mosque. And hopefully, for future events that come, then that interest will remain for years to come.
Wow, I mean, I'm sure people were just amazed after seeing the Cambridge, and it's a shame that the situation that we're in now, the whole lockdown situation, and inshallah if things start to get better, and we can invite more and more people in again, and it'd be nice to see a crowd gathering in the mosque again and looking around the masjid. Inshallah that time comes soon. Now, Ibrahim, I know, mashallah, you have also done a lot of things for AlAnsaar as well. We cannot thank you enough. You are part of the AlAnsaar team. So, having you on here is basically, I should just let you speak, mashallah, because you are obviously a volunteer at AlAnsaar, and we are very grateful for everything that you've done for us in terms of, helping out with the social media and, taking videos and recording some of the events in the past. Tell us, tell us how your experience has been with AlAnsaar and what you want to do with, how can we benefit not just AlAnsaar, not just this Islamic organization, but any organizations, all the different organizations that we have in Cambridge and in the UK and even, around the world. How can we as Muslims utilize the skills that we have, perhaps in our, the skills that we use every day in our workplace? What's the best way to utilize it in a way that we are volunteering for these kind of organizations? Not for fame or anything, just to get that reward, just to be part of the project and get that reward. What's the best way to move forward with this?
Yeah, no, I mean, first and foremost, it's been great to be part of AlAnsaar, really. I remember the first event we had in 2012. I think it was the Islamic Youth Conference at the Mayfield Primary School. I remember that because I was in my final year at university, and I remember when you were doing this event, and obviously it was great, and I remember attending it. I remember how we had such a massive crowd and big audience for that as well, and I think that's where it really stems from, really. And I thought, wow, if this is the first event, imagine what future events could be like as well. So, and I'm also, the reason why I wanted to volunteer is because, I think to be part of something Islamic as well, something where, you can be part of things where you're learning, you're gaining, Islamic knowledge. I think that, being part of that company, I think that is really important for myself as well, but also hopefully for others who have also volunteered in the past as well, or who maybe are considering being part of Islamic organizations. Because one day Allah will ask us on the Day of Judgment, what did you do at the time that you had on this earth? And if you can say, well, I used this time, some of the skills I developed or learned, I was able to put that towards maybe spreading the word of Allah. or and things like that. So that was one of the main intentions, really, to be amongst people like yourself. Obviously, you got a lot of knowledge as well, and and as a friend as well, it's great to be able to support you as well, and of course, Brother Rahi and everyone else who's been part of AlAnsaar. So that was one of the main motivations, really, to be part of that. And I think just going forward, I mean, obviously you've done lots of great events in the last 10 years, really, and hopefully once we return to some form of normality, inshallah, when we can eventually bring crowds together and do other events. But I think certainly in the last couple of years, at least with Cambridge Central Mosque coming here as well, that's quite a new thing. We didn't have that before. But imagine that, maybe do some events there as well. And, that might be a great opportunity to pull more guests in to be able to not just be able to visit the mosque, but also where you can help to grow the platform of AlAnsaar as well. Because also one thing you can remember is that we're in Cambridge as well. Cambridge is an iconic city. It's a city that's known across the world, really, a city known for education. And I think AlAnsaar really can have a big role in that, really, and really make itself known because of it being in Cambridge as well. So I think there's a lot that you can tap into, and really use that. And I think the more events that you can organise, maybe do more content on social media as well, and just try and post things regularly as well. It could even be just like once a week or something like that, at least when people know that something's coming up, and you can always schedule things in advance. So, as long as you've got something ready and you've made a little bit of time, and then you schedule it one day in the week and it goes out, then you'll always have something rolling out. And I think I've seen with your Instagram stories as well, you're showing like a day, regularly you're showing like one of the 99 days of Allah, and that's doing really well. So that's a good example of something you can do. And there's probably loads of other things that you can do as well. So just create some content. It can be quite small. It doesn't have to be anything too intense. But as long as it's short and it's regular and you're able to maintain it, I know because you're volunteers as well, it's difficult because we've got other working commitments, family commitments as well. But just setting aside a little bit of time, scheduling it, having it planned in advance, and letting it roll out, and inshallah, you'll see over time, that growth will come. Inshallah.
I mean, we are grateful for everything that you've done for us, and of course, inshallah, going forward, you're a vital member of AlAnsaar. But just talking about our Muslim community here in Cambridge, mashallah, we have got a huge array of talent in Cambridge. The youngsters, the youth in Cambridge, mashallah, even your sister Ibrahim Rahman, mashallah, she's slowly showing the potential she has to make an influence and an impact, for our community in the future, inshallah. May Allah give her the ability and tawfiq. And we see how there are many sisters now who are into baking and using their platform on social media, using it for a good reason, to promote, to give, their hard work, the time they spent baking everything, they sometimes give it away for charity, to raise money or something. So again, it's being used for good purposes. And what advice can you give those youngsters? How could they perhaps utilize their platform that they are on social media? How can they utilize it for good?
It's a good question. I mean, as you were saying, it's great to see some of the sisters in our community. We're seeing a lot of their creative talents as well. So yeah, please keep it going. I think it's fantastic, and also it hopefully encourages others to also be creative as well. And that's the kind of thing we want to see, really, where because from what I've seen from like other communities, maybe outside of Cambridge, we've seen where in the past maybe some people fell into the wrong kind of crowds. They ended up doing things like alcohol and drugs and other haram things as well. So if you can get them to be involved in things where it can involve like content creators and doing things that can involve I mean, baking is one example as well, but if they can do things where they can create short videos or create kind of content which engages and inspires people, they might not necessarily be comfortable with being on camera. Not everything has to be done on camera, not everything has to be done in front of a microphone, but you can be someone who does things behind the scenes, and you can still have an important part to play in that. So there's so many things that you can do. I mean, maybe I don't have all the ideas to hand right now, but one thing I would say, as you mentioned with the bakers, that's a great thing to do. Keep it going. You mentioned about my sister as well, Jazakallah khairan for that. It's great to see her poetry work as well. So maybe if anyone here is into creative writing, maybe that's something they could work on as well and share some of their talents as well. Because, I think if you look at it from maybe from a secular perspective, at least for education and for their career, that could also help them. And you never know in terms of their career where that could lead to as well. So, that's also something they could also pursue. But yeah, even going into the charity sector as well, there's so much good you can do with that as well. And of course, if you're doing it to help people, obviously any good deed that you do, hopefully Allah will accept, inshallah, as well. So yeah, there's so many things you can do really. But I'll just say really that just using social media for the good intentions, really. If you can use it to share things that people will think, yeah, they could really benefit from that, they can learn from this. And this is also about building communities as well, because, well, I guess all the work that I've done, I've always done it with people. It's never been done on my own. And I love working with people because you learn with others, you can share knowledge with others, and then other people come on board and then you're working together. And then that's what builds communities, really. And I think anything that helps to build a community and build cohesion is really important. And I think that's been consistent with all the work that I've done in media, where it's always been about interviewing people and learning about their stories and promoting the work that they're doing, because yeah, it's just great to be able to showcase some of the work they're doing, because there's so many people out there who are doing great work and we don't always know or hear about what they're doing. So I've always been quite motivated to bring them to the forefront and say, look, let's share your work because it's great, and I think more people can really benefit and learn from them.
I think that's a very important point that you just mentioned. I mean, when we look at social media, it's all about connecting, isn't it? It's all about
networking,
making friends and promoting your things and your friend things and people in your contact list, because that's the way you can perhaps, there might be two people doing the same thing, but maybe if they might be in the same neighborhood, but we don't know about it. Whereas obviously in social media, once you get on it, you'll find out, oh, that person's also doing it. Why not work together? Because at the end of the day, we are one community. We are, in Cambridge, we are the Cambridge Muslim community. And in order to flourish, we need to come together. We need to come together, bring ideas together, bring heads together, make a plan, and inshallah benefit our community, and of course, inshallah, the entire Muslim Ummah through social media. And it's all about sharing, promoting, and if, say for example, you've got a big following, if you were to share someone who might not have that many followers, but you're just sharing their story because it's beneficial, and then subhanallah, your contacts will see that. They might act upon it. They might donate something towards that charity, and everyone gets a part of the reward as well, subhanallah.
Yeah, no, well said. No, I totally agree.
So coming to talking about promoting different things from different projects that people are doing, let's talk a bit about what you have just started, mashallah. It's very exciting. I've seen it all over your Instagram, mashallah, and your social platforms, and I think it's really, really amazing what you are doing. Please just give us an insight into your project that you have just started, mashallah.
You're referring to Youth Suite, aren't you? Yeah, this is my podcast series that I launched quite recently. So this is basically a chat show podcast series that basically covers various topics of interest for today's youth. They're meant to be positive, inspiring, and thought-provoking conversations. So we've had 4 episodes already so far, and so I've interviewed. Particularly, the first episode I had was with a brother called Shuhail Ahmed, who's from East London. He's a filmmaker and podcaster. So I spoke to him about some of the creative projects that he's been working on. And then what we also have in every episode is a section called My Topic. So that's where people can bring forward a topic of their choice, something that they are passionate about and want to discuss further. So he particularly talked about his mental health experiences. I think mental health is something that particularly within like South Asian communities and even some Muslim communities as well, it's not always an easy topic to discuss. So it's about trying to create like a safe space where people can talk about these things openly. We can identify what the problem is, but also let's discuss how we can make it constructive, how we can move forward, what sort of things would you suggest, and how we can improve things, how we can make things better. Because one thing that I've sort of seen in my experience with using social media, and particularly Instagram as well, I think sometimes we have a tendency to complain a lot about things, and I think from an Islamic perspective, it's not always good to complain about things all the time. Okay, it's okay to maybe complain about something that's wrong maybe once or twice, but if you're always complaining about things and you're not actually doing anything constructive or positive, that's not a good thing. And we want to try and be a bit more progressive about these things and try and make things better. So that's something I would say to everyone watching. you know, and that's a reminder to myself as well, you know, not to complain too much. You know, if there's something you can do and you think, okay, what can I do? Maybe I can speak to someone and they can make something better. Or maybe, you know, I can do something about it and improve things, you know, within my remit, whatever is available that I can do, I can try and work on that. So that's something I would suggest really in that regard. So.
Yeah. So where can we listen to these podcasts, Ibrahim?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just realised what I didn't quite finish my answer because that's the thing I go on a tangent. So yeah. So in terms of, I'll answer your question now. So you can check out the podcast series by following USuite on Spotify. It's on Google Podcasts. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's on YouTube as well. So wherever else you get your podcasts from, you can find USuite on there. So yeah, that was the first episode that I've done so far. I've also spoken to someone else who's a biomedical scientist. His name's Ubaid Sajid. He's from Luton. So he talked about his journey into healthcare. And then he also talked about the topic of gang culture and how youths can fall into gangs and you know, why we want to try and avoid getting into these kind of things, really. I think we're quite lucky in Cambridge that we don't really have, I would say, any kind of gang culture. Maybe you can chip into that as well, brother. But I think that in other places like in London and in Luton, maybe like in Birmingham, Manchester, there might be this kind of issue there. So he was also trying to raise awareness of that and how we can try and avoid falling into traps like this. Having good role models and, you know, people that you can look up to for inspiration, people who can help you. Particularly some of the things we've already discussed. You know, these are the things that you can do to try and you know, make sure that you go on to have a successful career as well. So that was another one. And then recently I spoke to a sister called Nusayba Muhammad Timo. She's an entrepreneur. She's also the director and founder of the WOW Creative Arts School. It's the first Islamic creative arts school in the world, apparently. That's what she says, which is quite amazing. So this is an opportunity for young people really to basically learn about Islam, you know, learn about things from the Quran, but they can do it through the creative arts. And so she's been quite active with that, which is quite amazing. So that's something that I think a lot of people will want to check out and learn a bit more about. And then finally, we had the latest episode with a brother called Ryan Johnson. He is a science teacher from Cambridgeshire, so he talked about teaching in the pandemic. So we've got all kinds of topics, really. That's the idea. And I'm looking for more guests as well. So I am taking a short break now with Ramadan on the horizon. But yeah, if you are interested and you're doing some great work, or you know others who are doing some interesting work and have some burning topics they want to discuss, then please do get in touch with me and I'll be happy to have a chat with you.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating to listen to people's stories and just listen to the journey and what they went through, perhaps some of the struggles that they encountered in order to be in the place where they are today, right? And that always gives encouragement, motivation, and that's what we need. We need to be optimistic. We need stories of how people overcame struggles and, you know, achieved success. And I think, you know, I think we spoke about this, in fact, in our AlAnsaar episode 1, being optimistic during dark times. We need these stories to give us hope, give us inspiration, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I've been quite lucky, alhamdulillah, that, well, since the first lockdown, I've always had things to do. And, you know, whether that was with my day job, whether it was with doing things for the mosque, doing things for the Kareem Foundation, or with this podcast series. So, and I think one of the reasons why I wanted to set up this podcast series is it was so that I could do something creative, you know, work on something myself. So I had something to go to, and I had that sort of creative control over it, because when you're working in the charity sector, you can't like do anything. You know, you have to be quite careful. You've got your restrictions, really. But at least with something like this, where you've got full control over it, you can decide how you want to do it and how you want to shape it. And I think that's quite nice when you consider it from like a well-being perspective as well, because obviously in the pandemic we haven't really been able to go out very far. We haven't been able to really interact with family as much and see everybody in the community. But at least we're, you know, using technology, using social media, we're quite lucky in that respect that we can still do something and connect with people. And I think that's the key, really. If you can connect with people and share goodness, share positivity, you know, share optimism and hope, inshallah, you know, I think these things can go a long way. So we just got to try and keep that going.
Inshallah. And I think over the past year, we've seen how important social media has been, just for our mental sake, I guess, you know, just to keep up with family and friends and get in touch with them. You know, I think all our grandparents now know what Zoom is and FaceTime and everything. So Alhamdulillah, there's so much blessing that we can utilize from social media, and inshallah we make that effort to kind of always try our best to use it for good rather than bad.
Well, I would also say as well that it's important to strike a balance even with being on social media as well, because too much social media time is not a good thing, and that's something that I can speak from from experience really, because working full time in social media, I think at the end of the day, you kind of like you don't really want to look at Facebook and Twitter too much because you've seen it all day, and especially with some of the content that you get on there, sometimes sometimes it can be a bit draining. You might see sometimes some hate speech, and sometimes we've come across like Islamophobia, for example, which isn't always nice. And I think the more you see negative content, eventually it does wear away. It does wear you down a little bit. It does kind of upset you. So sometimes you just need to switch off from that, go do something else. And there's plenty of other things that we can do. We could like maybe read a book, learn, maybe we read some Quran in that time. Maybe we can learn a hadith, maybe watch an Islamic documentary. So these are all things that that I want to try and focus on, particularly this Ramadan as well. I really want to try and focus on these things. So maybe that's something that we can all do, just try and restrict maybe some social media time a little bit. I know it's funny me saying that, we work in social media, and obviously here we are on Instagram, but, no one's saying, don't, cut off completely, but it's just, striking that balance, everything should be done in moderation. And I think that's what Islam teaches us, not to go to either extreme. So if we can find the middle path with everything, I think that's really important.
Yeah. And of course, Ramadan just around the corner. It's perhaps a good idea to start from now, I guess, just cutting down on those hours that we spend on social media. And now even our technology allows us to see how many minutes or hours we have spent on Facebook or Instagram or social media. I think the iPhone has that feature. I'm not sure any other phones have that feature, but
it does. Again, yeah, I've got it on mine as well. So
yeah. So we should cut it down, especially in Ramadan. And as you said, spend that time wisely. And because the more we read, some information is just information which is we're reading, and it's not going to benefit us in this world, and neither is it going to benefit us in the hereafter. And I think most, I don't want to say all, of course it's not all, but most of the content, perhaps what we do consume every day from social media, are things that won't really benefit us. And if we are looking to achieve a lot this Ramadan, then cutting back, using social media less would perhaps be a very good idea here. So Jazakallah for that advice, and I'm sure inshallah our viewers have benefited from today's talk. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention before we finish this session today?
Well, I just want to say Jazakallah khairan, Ustad Saiful, for having me.
Thank you.
It's always, like I said earlier, it's a pleasure always to work with you and to be able to just speak with you. And I hope that once we return to some form of normality, we'll get to meet again and be able to work physically. I think social media can only go so far and do certain things, but I think the best way that we can always learn about anything, even just to do with Islam, is to actually be there physically with people, to sit in circles, to be in the mosque and to have those circles and all those sorts of things, those classes and lectures. So I'll always advocate for that. As much as I work in social media and I do all of this, the best form of engagement really is face to face. You can't beat that. And and I just hope that I pray to Allah that He keeps us all safe, we all stay well. And I hope that hopefully once things react, do some great events, and hopefully we'll go from strength to strength, and hopefully we'll see that there will be that burning desire really for people that I really want to go back to these things again, because I've missed all of that for the last 12 or so months. So inshallah, hopefully we can support you with that.
Amen. Thank you so much. Jazakallah, may Allah reward you for your time. Before you go, Brother Kashif has just sent a message. Who cut your hair, Ibrahim? And I think I'd like to know as well, mashallah. I mean, either you got a brilliant barber in your home, or Ibrahim's been up to some mischief.
It was my mum. She cut my hair on Friday. This is the first haircut I've had all year. It was so long, honestly, and it was just getting in my ears, and you try to keep it tidy and it just goes all over the place. It's just really uncomfortable having long hair. So, and I hate it. Usually I have a haircut every 6 weeks, but because of the barbers being shut during lockdown, I don't have much choice. So I asked Mum, can you please give me a trim? Yeah, there you go. Mum's already commented now. So she did that for me. So yeah, thank you, Mum.
Auntie, you've done a great job, mashallah. Okay. Ibrahim, thank you so much. Jazakallah, may Allah reward you immensely. And guys, if you are, please go and follow Youth Suite. It's amazing, mashallah. Brilliant podcast. It's, you know, when you listen to their stories, it does kind of give you a massive, different inspiration, mashallah. So do go onto Youth Suite. If you are unable to find it, then I guess going to your page will lead the viewers onto your podcast page as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So inshallah, our next live will be on Saturday, guys. So inshallah, we're looking forward to seeing you guys on Saturday, inshallah, in the evening, where we will have Brother Arman, who talks about the Quran and the different ways you can recite the Quran, and also the importance of Quran, especially in the month of Ramadan, inshallah. So do join us for that. And I will leave you now, and have a good evening, inshallah, and see you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.